What's up, guys? Nick Davenport, aka Mr. Mental Muscle, back in with Caitlin. Now, today is Halloween. Now, the first thing come to my mind is masks, scary people, haunted houses. People are maybe afraid of something, or people trying to frighten others, right? Trick or treat.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about how Halloween can teach us some mindset things, right? So what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind as well as, masks and haunted houses and everything is fear. And I think fear, not even just in the Halloween context, but fear is applied to our daily lives every single day, no matter kind of what you're doing for a living, whether it's through employment, whether it's through sport, whether it's just through daily life's hassles. I think fear plays a huge part in daily living.
So I think I told you a few weeks ago I'm a president's lover, and I knew pretty much every president from one to now. And one of the great presidents, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, said, "There's nothing to fear but fear itself."
You're
So,
right.
what do you think that means? Because I think that's very general. Nothing to fear but fear itself. But is he saying that I shouldn't be afraid of nothing then in the moment versus being apprehensive about? Because when we talk about anxiety, it's like I'm worried about what could happen, and I guess
Mhm.
what he's trying to say is don't worry about all that. Just worry about what's in this
Mhm.
moment. That's what I took from that saying.
With that, something that I always say is worry about the what is and not the what if. So I think a lot of times if you stay in that what is moment, you're not really in fear of the what if because that what if might not even be a possibility. Another thing that comes to my mind when you say that quote as well is, I've worked with a lot of people directly where their mind will automatically go the worst case scenario.
Mhm.
So I always counter that to, okay, for every worst case scenario that you think of, think about its counterpart. Okay, what is its best case scenario and end on that thought. So I think fear, in going back to your quote, fear is very, very powerful. And I think that that's where Roosevelt was getting at there is that fear, although it's a very intangible concept and it's not something that we see, however, it is very, very powerful and strong and it impacts us so much on just daily.
So you say it's intangible. So if I just run up here and put out a knife, it's not tangible. I'm just
Oh,
playing. I'm challenging the thought process, but I get what you're saying. I was just
in
being
in
funny.
a sense of like you can't like it's not like a material
Hmm.
object, it's a emotion or a feeling that you have inside of you. Obviously it manifests in a tangible way, like you show fear whether it's through your body language, whether it's through like screaming, whatever. In your reaction you'll be able to show fear in a tangible way, but the concept of fear itself is just in your mind.
I agree. I agree. And you work with high level athletes. You coach at University of Fort Lauderdale with softball. So can you have any examples like working with your athletes in real time, seeing them getting in their own head, whether it's at bat or maybe making an error on the field? Can you see how that could the fear of maybe striking out or
Mhm.
making a bad play?
Oh, absolutely. Like in all those common examples right there, anything as far as, oh, if you make a mistake, being able to bounce back from that mistake. A lot of girls, that I work with, like have fear of making that Nets play or making that Nets mistake. Something specifically that came to my mind is I've encountered a lot of players where they have a fear because of a past injury sliding.
Mm.
Sliding's very, very common, unfortunately, where a lot of girls will get hurt into some capacity trying to do it, and then their mind holds them back and fear holds them back from ever trying it again. And a lot of times, as we know in like the stress history model of injuries, the more and more that you think about an injury happening or um think about your past mistakes in causing that injury, you're making it more likely to happen again.
Mm, that's a good one because I know personally when I got injured, even up until now, I'm not a high level athlete anymore, but when I have little nicks and bruises, I get apprehensive about will I hurt it again? And
Mhm.
indirectly, if you get into like the cognition of it, you kind of put yourself in a predisposition
Mhm.
to mess up, which may not necessarily cause you to get hurt, but why put it in an ability where you have less attentiveness or less focus, or you're so stressed and tense that you make a sudden move, and since you're more tense, the muscle might tear. I've had a few tears because of that in the past.
Mhm.
So it's crazy how we can make this physical aspect come all together. Now, going along with the theme of Halloween, I mentioned mask costumes. So let's go to that angle of how someone, as a person, whether it be in a sport, school, relationship, dating, whatever, you might put on a mask. And do you think personally, is it a good thing to have some sort of like a not a facade? That's a bad word to use, but maybe a covering so you don't fully show, because some scenarios you might have to be
Mhm.
different than others. So is it beneficial to have that quote unquote
I
mask?
think in some scenarios, and like yes, like you do need to put on that mask, especially, obviously my mind goes right to sports, but you know if you're coming into a sporting event or coming into a game, maybe after a bad day at school, and maybe you have a lot of insecurities that you're dealing with, you're lacking confidence, you're in fear for that game. You don't want to walk out into the field and show that on your face. You don't want to
Yeah.
show those insecurities or that lack of confidence. You want to be able to put that mask on. I think the importance of that is self-awareness and knowing, okay, what am I walking into this game with now? How do I leave it in the locker room before I take the field or court, whatever?
So I use a term that I learned a few years back, and I call it performance identity. And it's kind of like athletic identity, but only difference is more so not relegated just to sport, but it's like what is the overall covering I put on myself to walk into that performance, whether it be sporting event, speaking on stage in front of 1,000 people, whatever it may be. And it's like those certain traits. Sometimes, like say if you're an introverted person, if you're talking about something like sport, you have to perform in front of people whether you like it or not. So you have to put on a quote unquote mask and then go out and do what you need to do. And just like you said with the confidence thing or being nervous, it's like you don't ever want to show it. Not saying you don't have it. Some people, they're what they call it, a poker face. They're able to go into it and be like, you know what? No matter how scared I am, you will never know. And I was that type of player myself. But I think it's a good thing to have. But where do you think it can go too far where you become the said costume or mask and it can be detrimental? What do you think that
Well,
can
that's
occur?
exactly what I was going to say, is that once it starts to consume you and it starts to leak into other aspects of your life where maybe it is more detrimental, that's when, that's when you need to be able to have the self-awareness to realize, okay, I have to take that mask off. I really liked what you had to say though about the idea of creating a performance identity. Like I know in working with athletes, one of the questions that I have for athletes that might be struggling with confidence or being able to, take their problems, being able to leave their problems behind before taking the field is I'll ask them, before a game, okay, like what I know with younger clients, I'll be like, all right, what animal do you want to be today? And a lot of times, I want to be a bulldog,
That's
coach.
good.
I'm like, all right, like what are some attributes or what are some traits that a bulldog has that you want to display today out on the field? And that's kind of something that we'll build rapport about, where every day I'll be like, all right, were you a bulldog today? Sometimes I'll get the Great Dane, I'll get the tiger and like all that stuff. So definitely finding a way to develop a performance identity, or if, a lot of times in real life, we have insecurities or we have things that we're dealing with that is going to impact us on the field. So by kind of putting on that facade or putting on that mask in a sense or costume, I think that that's a really good way to be able to jump over that hurdle of fear and performance anxiety and all these other constructs that impact performance in a detrimental way.
All right, so you hear that. Go to Party City to find your mental skills. So to wrap up, we're going to take completely off of this. I'm going to put you on the spot. What is your favorite horror movie?
Oh, Nick, I don't watch scary movies at all.
Oh, really?
I hate
You've
scary
seen
movies.
some. Okay, what's a horror movie that you remember that maybe made you scared?
I can definitely say, I will say this past weekend, I did watch 2 scary movies just to get into the spirit. I bought this from Party City, just to really get into the spirit. And I did watch on Netflix. It was a newer scary movie called Us. And that was pretty good.
Us.
That was pretty good. It was
Peele.
weird. It was weird, but it was pretty good. It had a really cool concept behind it.
Okay, so you watched a more a horror movie with a message.
Yes.
Because I've seen Us and I've seen Nope and Get Out, which are all made by Jordan Peele. So I know all those movies. So I like those type of scary movies. So if I was to pick, my most recent one I've watched that I really liked was called The Ritual. Have you heard of that one?
No, I have not.
So this is one of those scary movies where it's realistic. There's some mystical elements, but
That's
it's
where
one
it
of those scary
gets me.
movies where they're in the woods and they're in like Sweden, I think, or one of those Nordic countries, and the wilderness, and they're going on a regular hike with their friends. Some crazy like supernatural stuff starts happening. It's like a death cult involved. That's where the realistic side, because it's people actually kidnapping and killing. So it's like scary because there is a demonic entity. So that's kind of fake and mystical. But it's elements like, wait, should I go to the woods and hike? Because if this is what's waiting for me, I don't want to go. So I guess getting to that to bring it full circle, because still want to make it mental, overcome your fear of scary movies.
As long as the lights are on.
Oh, I can do that.
So let me ask you, I wanted to ask a follow-up question to you. Have you been hiking in the woods since watching that movie?
To be honest, I've only been in the woods a few times, and it was the train with a Navy SEAL where we had a bunch of guns. So I didn't feel too scared being there.
Safe spot to be.
This guy was a sniper in the Navy SEAL, so I learned how to shoot from him. So I'll say that yes, I have done stuff, but it don't make me forget that.
Okay.
That was a crazy movie. But hey, I'm like Roosevelt. Only thing to fear is fear itself. Get your mind right.